Angela, if you would take the foreign policy aspects of this now, where do we stand?
Well, I'm delighted to be with you. Alas, it's only remotely, but I look forward to being in Houston in a couple of days. In 2008, President Putin had a conversation with President George Bush where he said, George, Ukraine isn't really a country. The western part was in Eastern Europe, but the majority of Ukraine was given to us. So I think the reality is that, of course, the eastern part of Ukraine has been allied with Russia, has been part of Russia for a very long time, more than 3 centuries, and particularly Crimea, that peninsula that we've been seeing so much in the news, that has been part of either the Russian Empire or the Soviet Union for over 300 years. And for some reason, 60 years ago, Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, decided that he would give Crimea to the Soviet Republic of Ukraine as in commemoration of 300 years of Ukrainian-Russian unity. And of course, little did he know that the Soviet Union would break up. So that when Ukraine became an independent country in 1992, Crimea was suddenly part of the new Ukrainian state, although the majority of people in Crimea at that time did vote to be part of the Ukrainian state. So today we're in a situation where Russia, the Black Sea Fleet, is headquartered in Crimea. The lease was renegotiated in 2010, and it's supposed to last till 2042. And suddenly there was a specter after the revolution and the unrest in Kiev starting in November. There was a specter that this new interim government might reconsider that lease, might revoke the lease. So the first goal for Russia is clearly to maintain its equities in Crimea, to maintain its Black Sea Fleet.
So, Angela?
Then there was a piece of legislation that was passed by the new Ukrainian government, interim government, which would have degraded the role of the Russian language.
I don't know if Angela can hear me.
Things, but particularly the question of the base, really motivated the Russians to realize that they had to protect their equities there.
Right.
Angela?
Well, yes, I wanted to just ask you, well, Thane is here now, so I'd like to just come to Thane and then come back to you. And Angela started to lay out what happened. Thane, how did this happen so quickly, in a nutshell?
Well, thank you, Dan. I'll pick up right where Angela left off. This crisis begins in November, when Yanukovych decides to turn down an association with the European Union and instead to make a turn toward Russia. This was the immediate spark that then caused crowds to pour into the central square of Kiev, the Maidan, the same place where there had been mass demonstrations in the so-called Orange Revolution a decade before. The Maidan was occupied, as you know, for a period of several weeks in an increasingly tense standoff with the Yanukovych government, at the end of which comes the collapse of the Yanukovych government as a result of Yanukovych's attempt to clear the square by force. At that point, events start moving very fast. Yanukovych flees Kiev, initially for Kharkov in East Russia, in eastern Ukraine, and then on, as it turns out, to Russia, leaving a weak interim government in Kiev of unelected officials who effectively have come in on an emergency basis to fill the vacuum. The Maidan is still full of demonstrators who hold a great deal of the power, and the interim group has to reckon with them among the other complications that it faces. So that, in brief, is the story of how we got to here from there.
And Thane, what are the major dangers ahead?
I'm sorry?
What are the major dangers ahead?
Well, the first thing I think we have to recognize is that Crimea is off the table. And if Russia seals off Crimea, that also takes Crimea effectively out of the game. The main danger at this point stems from the very real possibility that the rest of eastern Ukraine will begin to break away. And so to track that, look for events in the cities of Kharkov and Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. The complication is that the present group, the interim government in Kiev, consists of unelected politicians and businessmen who are themselves not very popular, and they are not, in fact, in control of the country. And so the very real danger is that Ukraine could well continue to unravel because this interim government is really incapable of maintaining order or running the affairs of the country.